How to see that a numpy array of zeros is not empty? Here is my problem. I use numpy any function to check if my array is empty or not. I would think that, given that 0 is a float, the any function from numpy would return true. How can I make this happen? What's the reason behind the fact that zeros are not considered as actual values by numpy? I use Python 2.6.
What's the reason behind the fact that zeros are not considered as actual values by numpy? It's a general principle in Python that false means false, none, and numeric zero, or an empty collection. See truth value testing in the documentation for the exact rules. Different languages have different rules for what counts as truthy versus falsy. These are Python's. And numpy follows that general principle. So, zeros are considered as actual values, but they're actual false values. So, an array full of numeric zero values does not have any truthy members, therefore calling any on it will return false. Note that in some cases, a value that rounds to 0.0 isn't exactly 0, in which case it may be, confusingly, true. Just one more way floating point rounding errors suck. If you really need to check that the values are non-zero, check whether they're within some appropriate epsilon of 0, rather than checking exact values. NumPy has a number of useful helpers here. I left out the rule that custom types can decide which values are truthy or falsy by defining a _bool_ method, or various fallbacks which depend on your exact Python version. That's how things work under the hood. But for the designer of such a class, her class should try to follow the general principle, whatever it means for her values which are 0, or empty or false or non-existent. That's the rule that her _bool_ method should apply. In C family languages, it's generally zeros and null pointers that are falsy. In Lisp family languages, it's only the empty list or closely related values. In Ruby and Swift, it's just false and nil. And so on. Any rule will be counterintuitive in some cases, as long as the language and its ecosystem are consistent. That's as good as you can hope for. If you have to use a language that isn't consistent, like PHP or JavaScript, you'll have to keep the docs handy.
What you are observing is actually expected. Any means is there any element whose Boolean value is true in this array. Since the Boolean value of 0. is false, non-zero numbers are true, it is normal that a.any is false when the array only contains zeros. You can check the Boolean value of any Python object with bool. If you need to know if your array has any element, then you can test a dot size, 0 for no elements.